horror story. I get it as a cosmic horror story. I had to read it like 3 times.
Yeah, I hate to say it. You know what? I've never finished it. It's one of those things. It's a book that's just tough for me to get through. I don't know why. And because I'm good at reading stuff from that era, but I don't know what it was. That book definitely has an overall, feeling of dread about it though. Holy cow.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's very dense. And see, this actually came up on the Ghostwriters podcast. We were talking about the guys who did The Endless. Their new movie, Synchronic, is out.
Yeah, I want to check that out. That looks very good.
Fantastic. It really is. And
Spring is amazing too. And that's one of Dave's favorite films, right?
Oh yeah. And the thing is that all of the stuff they do is cosmic. But like Synchronic, I can't really say is cosmic horror. There are horrific elements to it. But one of the things I've noticed too with cosmic horror, and these guys definitely do this, is that time is not a function of space, which is what current physics suggests.
Yeah.
It's more that space is a function of time, or that time, because time isn't linear. But in cosmic horror, nothing is. Nothing is stable. Nothing is. Oh, The Void. The Void is another movie that was.
Yeah, The Void. Like, I'm so middle of the road on The Void. I just really wish those guys had either another pass at the script, or it seems like they kind of ran out of money too.
Well, you know what? The first time I saw it, I didn't care for it. I thought the ending seemed kind of abrupt. But I went and watched it a couple more times, and it really grows on you.
Well, you know what? I'll have to revisit it because I got to tell it was so hyped, I think. And when me and my friend went into the theater, we kind of were like, yeah. I enjoyed it,
Right.
But that opening moment when they go outside and the cultists are standing around in those hoods with the triangles and the masks, that moment is, my hair on my arms are raising up right now just talking about it.
I would like to see what they can do with a bigger budget, because I thought what they did there was pretty good. The special effects were good. We were going to come back to different subgenres of cosmic horror. Remind me, because that. But like, okay, something like, say, Styx, Karl Edward Wagner.
Yeah, you know what? I was going to mention Styx because I finally read that like a couple of years ago. I got a hardcover horror collection that had it in there, and that's, well, I really would love to see his stuff, particularly his Kane novels, be reprinted, because he is such a brilliant writer.
He's very, you can find the anthologies he edited. We keep finding them in like used bookstores and stuff, but his own work, his own collected short stories are like damn near impossible to find. And if you do find them, they're super expensive. So if you're ever in a place where you find Karl Edward Wagner short fiction collected somewhere, get it, because it is a gem of a find. He was a fantastic writer.
Now he was an MD, right? Was he an MD or was he a DDS?
He was an MD.
He was an MD.
My understanding was that he suffered a heartbreak so bad that he drank himself to death.
Yeah, I've heard that because I have friends. My friend Norm Hood, who is the owner of Chimera Publishing, which is the largest dealer of science fiction and fantasy fine art in the world. He was very close with Karl, and he said basically, that's exactly what happened.
It's such a shame too, because the man was so talented. I heard he was kind of rowdy and kind of an interesting, boisterous sort of guy. And I would have liked to have met him, but his work is, it's beautiful in a way that, here's the thing. And I don't mean this as a diss toward any writer's particular style, but I've always admired people who were not just good storytellers, but who could couch it in a beautiful way. who always picked just the perfect way to describe something or just the right word to evoke a certain image. And I think Carl Edward Wagner was one of those people who was really good at that, was really good at this, painting this picture of this sort of beautiful, this beautiful, horrific world, and it could be because, there's a lot of influence of classic writers, like people who wrote pre-Lovecraft or who were contemporaries of Lovecraft tended to write that way too. And I think that was the general.
Oh yeah, well, Robert Bloch certainly does. There's no doubt about that.
Algernon Blackwood, Clark Ashton Smith writes. I swear to God, they're like wordgasms. They're like, it's the most beautiful writing, even when he's describing horrific things. It's just gorgeous. It's gorgeously put together. Yeah,
well, that's like, for instance, I'm not a big fan of his politics. I interviewed him once, and he's a very, very interesting person, and he doesn't seem to like any kind of pop culture in any way, shape, or form. But who was a brilliant wordsmith is James Ellroy, who wrote L.A. Confidential and American Tabloid. He himself is a complete kook, recovering speed addict who was homeless. He one of the reasons he writes sleazy criminals so well is that he was actually, he would break into people's homes and steal women's panties and shit. He was like a genuine creep. And then he ended up getting pneumonia, and it turned out it was a lung infection. And the doctors were like, you got a choice. You can go back out on the streets and keep doing speed, or you can get your shit together. And he got his shit together and became, hugely successful writer. But his politics are, don't coincide with mine. A person who is an incredible wordsmith, whose politics are very similar to mine, who I've also, interviewed but gotten to know very, very well, is our mutual friend Joe R. Lansdale.
Yes.
I mean, you talk about a guy that can just, string together, sentences that are, evocative, yet also at the same time so down to earth.
Yes. And he even talks like that. Even having conversations or listening to him tell you a story is like that too.
He takes
from a way of spinning a yarn, really.
He takes from great sources too, because I don't know if I've ever told you this story, but my mother and Joe hit it off very well when they met. And my mother started reading the Hap and Leonard novels and his Westerns. I will not allow her to read his horror. Right. And he's even said, Rose, you don't want to read my horror. And yeah, I do a pretty good East Texas Joe Lansdale. I know Brian does a good one. Joe Lansdale's arguably the most impersonated horror writer in modern horror, I think.
Yeah.
So, but I go over to my mom's one day, and she's got Lansdale's new Western, Paradise Sky. And she says to me, so Joe Lansdale quoted me in his new book. And I'm like, get the fuck out of here, Mom. What are you talking about? She opens the book, hands it over to me, Mary. I look at the book, and I read the first sentence of the chapter, and it says, he woke up before a sparrow took a fart. And I closed the book and gave it back to my mother, and I was like, son of a bitch. Joe Lansdale fucking used one of my mother's expressions in a novel.
Oh, that's funny. Nice. It's nice to be immortalized that way.
Yeah. And so, I mean, and that's just the kind of guy he is. And talking about cosmic horrors, my mother, I kid. My mother's wonderful. Everybody adores her. Oh, and speaking of which, how is your mom doing, by the way?
Good.
All right, excellent. At some when this is all said and done, Mary, at some point, I really want to sit down and break bread, with my Lancaster family.
Oh, nice.
I really genuinely miss you guys. Mike and Lex are just such absolute sweethearts, and Chris Enterline and I've been playing in Chris Enterline's Alien game, and and trying to get him some work and stuff. So yeah, anybody wants to hire a brilliant comic book and cover artist, Chris Enderline's available, as is the amazing Ann, who did Stand It Out. I'm now actually a comic book agent, believe it or not. Nice. I managed to pull that off somehow. Anyway, I'm rambling. We're gonna take another quick break, and then we're just gonna talk about the stuff that Mary and I are currently enjoying for our viewing, reading, and listening pleasure. All right, this is the Literate Nerds. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Literate Nerds. I am Pat Kennedy, as always, and my guest tonight is horror writer and podcast host herself, Mary SanGiovanni.
Hi.
And you can hear Mary on Cosmic Shenanigans and the Ghost Writers podcast. And what times and days are those shows released, Mary?
The Ghost Writers podcast goes up Thursday nights, I think around like 7. And Cosmic Shenanigans goes up Sunday nights, I think around the same time, 7, 8 o'clock, something like that.
Thursdays and Sundays. All right, excellent. So the final segment of the show we do is What's on Your Shelf, where we discuss whatever kind of content myself and the guests are enjoying this week. I always go first and just get it out of the way. And my suggestion this week, speaking of really brilliant cosmic horror, is a television show on HBO that was originally produced for HBO Europe, created by the brilliant Alex D'Iglesia, who folks might know from his classics Acción Mutante and Perdita Durango, among others. The show is called 30 Coins, not 30, 30 monedas in Espanol. It is a Spanish language show, so if you don't, speak Spanish fluently or understand it fluently, like I don't, you got to watch with subtitles. But this show is absolutely, you want to talk about a show that's so up my alley. The protagonist is a priest that spent 2 years in prison, who is really grizzled and is kind of like operating on his own without the blessing of the Vatican to fight forces of evil. And he's got like a cache of weapons underneath the altar.
Nice.
And the 30 coins in question are the 30 coins that Judas was paid to betray Christ.
Oh.
And yeah, it's and each episode and the other two protagonists of the show are the mayor of the town, who also owns a hotel and a meat processing plant with his wife, who was very influential, kind of like the homecoming queen type of the town, okay. The small town in Spain. And the other protagonist is a woman who is the town veterinarian whose husband disappeared mysteriously not long ago. So everybody in the town's kind of suspicious of her. And the mayor and the vet have like a history between the two of them. And Mary, these two people, I should have the actors' names. As a matter of fact, I'm just going to pull them up right now. But I have to tell you, yeah, two people should not be this good looking and have this kind of chemistry. It's really, really unseemly how just disgustingly gorgeous the two of them are. Okay, it's Megan Montaner is who plays Elena. Eduard Fernandez is Padre Manuel Vergara, who is just my absolute favorite new character ever. He, in a lot of ways, he reminds me of Christopher Golden and Mike Mignola's Lord Baltimore. That kind of scarred up desperation. And Miguel Angel Silvestre plays Paco, who is the mayor. So it's available